You hear people talk about freedom and flexibility when it comes to RV life. Get the vehicle, drive to a beautiful place, do some fun activities, fall asleep at the beautiful place, wake up, and repeat. But I think the part we don't mention is, what's the phrase? Tell God your plans so you can hear him laugh. That's kind of van life. Van life for me started off with a vision that I was going to do all the things, especially within the US, that I could drive to. Like, if I can drive there, then the van's coming with. The longer I live in this van, and maybe part of it has to do with my age, the more things I'm striking off my list. And as I strike it off my list, there's two things happening. Sometimes I'm completely striking it off my list, meaning I'm probably just never going to go there. Like ever. While other times I'm scratching it off the van life list, but I'm perfectly willing to go there, let's say via plane or even a car. Alaska for me is one of those places. Do I want to go to Alaska? Yes. Do I want to go to Alaska in my RV, in my house? Like, I've seen so many videos of driving to Alaska from Washington State, and that road looks ridiculous.
This stretch of the highway has been like a continuous game of chicken. We are just trying to avoid the potholes at all costs.
I'm just not going to put my RV through that. I'm not saying there aren't RVs that can easily traverse it. I'm just saying my baby, this little 2000 Dodge Road Trek 190 Popular it's not going to do well on that terrain. So no, more than likely, I'm probably going to fly to Alaska, stay at a hotel, and take a bunch of tours. But the van? No. Now, why is this on my mind? Well, one, because spring break just started. I had plans for spring break, which this actually included a couple nights at a hotel because my son and I would be spending some time away from the vehicle, and I wasn't sure if it would be too hot for the dog. But then I started seeing all these videos talking about the solar eclipse. Now, watching a solar eclipse has never been of particular interest to me, ever. But there I was scrolling YouTube, and these solar eclipse videos kept popping up, probably because I watched the first video, so the algorithm decided I like all solar eclipse videos. But either way, obviously it's a very, very cool phenomenon, but I didn't inherently think the moon covering the sun, thereby making the earth dark, like in and of itself, especially because it lasts for like just a couple of minutes usually, it didn't particularly intrigue me. But supposedly the experience involves not just the location becoming night, but it involves all of Mother Nature, if that makes sense, going to sleep for literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And because 2024, this year, is the last year in the US that we're going to have an opportunity to witness a total solar eclipse for 20 years, by which time my son will be a full-grown adult, I thought, I lead a free and flexible lifestyle here in the RV. Let's just go. Yeah, we'll just cancel our plans. Sadly, it was non-refundable hotel rooms, but nevertheless, let's just scrap that and we'll go and drive to one of the many cities where the total eclipse is happening. That should be easy. So I hop on Amazon, get myself some PPE for the solar eclipse. I feel like I'm trying to look through cardboard and I'm like ready to go. Except I live in Georgia, and so I would have to drive. I think the nearest place for me would be a little north of Cincinnati, Ohio. That would be the shortest drive to get there. Because I do plan on sleeping in the RV, I don't need to worry about whether there's hotel spaces. I do need there to be some place for me to park overnight. This year, it is estimated that 3.7 million people are going to be traversing to the path of the total eclipse. Now, there's lots of cities that you can go to, but any hotel, any campsites, any whatever, those have all been booked. If there's any campsites left, we're talking about places that normally cost $20, $30, maybe $40, now costing hundreds of dollars. Airbnb, Vrbo, hotels, all of those prices have absolutely been bumped up for the occasion. And I wouldn't be surprised if some hotels have actually overbooked. So that will be a huge factor in whether my plans work out. Additionally, Mother Nature is causing the solar eclipse, right? Like this is a natural phenomenon. But two, in theory, anywhere along the total eclipse path through the US should be a great place, except for clouds. and rainy days. It's April. I don't know if you know anything about April and showers, but they have a really great relationship with each other. So now I'm looking at what are the chances in April that I will have a clear day to watch the solar eclipse. Well, if you go further south to places like Texas, even better if you go to Mexico, you have a 50-50 shot of having a clear sky so you can fully watch the amazing solar eclipse. If you go really anywhere north of Texas, you have now reduced it to a 90% chance of a cloudy day. Yeah, there's a 90% chance if I don't go to Texas that I'm not going to actually experience the solar eclipse. Driving to Texas compared to driving to Ohio, much different scenario. And do you think it's possible that the people who really, really care about watching the solar eclipse, they're probably going to Texas as opposed to Ohio? Do you think that's a possibility? Again, 3.7 million people going to sometimes very small towns. How prepared are these small towns to handle it? I would argue Texas might actually be the most prepared to handle an influx of people, although they are expecting so many people that they want the National Guard to help out. Okay, so maybe Texas is not the place to go. Depending on the city, right? And obviously some cities are more popular than others. There is possibly going to be an influx of 100,000 people. 100,000 people. So what could go wrong? Running out of gas, which by the way, I have experienced blizzards here on the East Coast where gas stations run out of gas. And so basically you have to park somewhere. This is before I had the RV. You just had to park somewhere in a blizzard because you just don't have enough gas to go to the place you want to go. Finding parking spots, hotels during a blizzard, not easy. Anyway, potential for running out of gas. Literally just because there's so many people in vehicles going to these places. Restaurants, grocery stores could absolutely run out. I mean, we're in the US where sometimes cities literally do run out of groceries for a time because of unexpected, or more accurately, hard to plan for events such as a solar eclipse scenario. With that influx of people, you're going to have an increase of people getting injured, possibly from staring at the sun too long. So having a first aid kit, being prepared to handle emergencies without hospitals or clinics could be important. Being stuck in traffic, not being able to move because of the crowd of people means you need to have a supply of water, blankets if it gets too cold, etc., etc. Like, just the list absolutely goes on and on and on of the things I need to plan for in case plans go awry, which first rule for me is to accept that the things I plan may not happen. So carefree life, sort of. I mean, I have the freedom to go and watch the solar eclipse, but really the reason I have this freedom is a lot less to do with having a van and a lot more to do with being retired, not having to go to work at a particular time. So is van life necessarily the freedom life, or just is living in the US kind of a freedom lifestyle? Especially if you're retired. I would argue that maybe van life is a little less freeing because there are places I will not go in my van where I might have gone in a car/hotel scenario. But let's scratch the solar eclipse off the list and let's talk about other scenarios in which I found myself doing things that was not on my plan. This last summer, for example, my intent was to have a very passive, very easy summer vacation in the RV. I didn't want to make any firm plans. I was going to go where the wind led me. I knew I was going to start in Illinois because Illinois is where my ex-husband lives, and that's where my son was going for his summer break. He was going to visit his dad. So then I would only be traveling with my little dog. So I could do pretty much whatever I wanted. So because I'm not overly familiar with traveling through Illinois, I thought this would be a great time for me to visit places in Illinois that maybe my son wouldn't necessarily want to go. So I did a Google search. I wrote down a list of a lot of places in Illinois that I thought would be great. I also wrote down a list for Wisconsin since it's summer and I'm probably going to want to go north. It was okay with me if I didn't visit all of them, but I did imagine during an entire summer that I would visit, a significant amount. How many did I visit? 2. I visited 2 places. I was expecting to spend an entire day at least at these different locations. The first place I went had recently had some summer storms, so they were washed out. There were a lot of trails that were closed, which meant I didn't have a reason to stay there. The second place I went, very excited about, Woodstock, Illinois.
Excuse me. Where's everybody going?
To Gobbler's Knob. It's Groundhog Day.
I got there at like maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, really, really early. Strolled around town. Nothing was open, but it was cool. About 9 o'clock, it became extraordinarily hot, like way too hot for me and my dog to hang out in this city waiting for it to open. I do not remember what day of the week it was, but maybe it was a Sunday. Either way, none of the stores, none of the restaurants were opening. It was extremely hot. Turns out they have a no dog policy when it came to the city center, which I wasn't expecting. So yeah, stayed there for less than 2 hours and headed off to the next location. And after that point, everywhere that I tried to go had some type of an issue. I spent so much time driving to places that didn't work out, having to continue driving because it was too hot to stay there all day. Like we've had a couple days of nothing but driving. Yeah, we've had a lot of car days. In short, the entire first week of my summer vacation, I was miserable. I couldn't find a comfortable place to relax. So many times I thought about just hijacking it back to Georgia, getting into the AC, and giving up on this summer. I will possibly never go anywhere in the RV in the summer again. Because why? Why do this? I'm glad I didn't, because I ended up unplanned at Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is a beautiful city. It was still hot, but I happened to be there for July 4th. It was a great time. But when I wasn't outside doing a particular activity, being in the van was miserable, which meant I spent a lot of time at Hobby Lobby, Home Depot, places where my dog was allowed to enter, just so we could get some AC in our lives. I was constantly seeking shaded places to park, and Sheboygan did not have a plethora of those. I did visit, again, unplanned, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That was the first place where during the day it was still hot, but at night the temperature dropped so low that it made mornings very, very pleasant. Like, it didn't become uncomfortable till much later in the day, and the uncomfortable was a tolerable uncomfortable. I didn't feel the need to find stores that we could hide out in. But ultimately, my Illinois, Wisconsin summer turned into weeks upon weeks of staying essentially in one spot that has never been on my list. The northern shore of Lake Superior, which is a small sliver of Minnesota. It was the best place for me to accidentally end up, and I stayed without official campsites for most of my summer. Like, I stayed up there until it was time for me to go get my son. Hopping around just a handful of rest areas and state parks. Yeah. In order for me to have the carefree, flexible lifestyle, I have to be in a place where I'm comfortable on multiple levels, temperature, safety, and last summer that place ended up being between Two Harbor and Tetagouche, just the northern strip of Lake Superior. Will I go there again this summer? I have no idea. It's way too early to tell. But all of this to say, RV life for me, when I think freedom and flexibility, it sounds like it means I can go wherever I want, whenever I want, do what I want. And to a certain degree, it's true, but it is highly suspicious to me that the places I happen to want to go are always places that have highs of 70s. So 80s and 90s, no thank you. And again, if we're talking the summertime in the US, 90-something% of the US gets immediately crossed off my list. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with that heat. I'm going to keep going north, or you can also find elevated locations, which are cool. I'm definitely much more mountain than beach, so no problems there. But yeah, it's being a van lifer has reduced the number of places in the US that I want to visit, especially in my van, and has opened my mind to places that I would be willing to go to in the US that previously held no particular charm for me. So, as we head out to hopefully witness a total solar eclipse this year, I'm constantly reminding myself, no matter how much I plan, the best part of RV life is honestly when plans fall through and other unexpected things happen instead. And this is my free and flexible van life.